Hello, Exia here. Today I'm gonna be doing like a prediction tier list going into set three. Um, is this basically gonna be a tier list of how good I think certain decks are going to perform? I did not include all of the decks out there. I kind of just included the ones that I think will be relevant going into this next set. Um, so some of the builds that I did not include is like Phoenix Roost. Because just did not want to make a separate category for it. Same with Rose Queen. For Forest, I kind of just lumped that. I kind of just lumped that in with Silverbolt, and I think yeah for the most part, yeah, I think this list of decks is, I think are gonna the builds are gonna be, I think, are gonna be relevant going into this set. So with that, let's get started. I'm gonna go by craft. So we're gonna start off with Forest. First is gonna be Beauty and the Beast Forest. This is a meta definer. Actually, I should go over each tiers. So meta definer is pretty self-explanatory. These decks are gonna define, or I think these decks are going to define this meta because of the cards that they got from the new set. Strong is not quite the same level, but it's still gonna be like a strong option, going into this set. Solid is it's a it's a decent deck. It's not quite as good, but at the hands of the right pilot will do pretty well. Rogue is kind of the same as Solid, just it's a bit more of an uphill battle for these decks to do well. Again, at the hands of the right pilot, can do very well. And pay your bills instead. This list isn't like straight up trash. However, decks that will go on this tier, basically, instead of building this specific variant of deck for this craft, you're better off just building a different variant instead. So yeah, going back, Beauty and the Beast is definitely going to be meta definer because of the fabled archetype introduced in set 3. So cards like Alice, Actress Feria, so base and the other fabled cards in Forest, so like Lilac, Rose, something Rose, and then an Amulet. So cards like that. So this build takes advantage of the fabled archetype and also everything else that Forest has got from the previous set. So yeah, Beauty and the Beast, easily a meta definer deck. Next is gonna be Silver. I chose the icon for Silverbolt, but this is pretty much everything else in Forest that is not making use of the fabled archetype as much in the build. So like Silverbolt, um, Rose Queen. Shout out to Bella Boo for doing really well at Worlds. So all of that is, I kind of just lumped it on this build because I did not want to make a separate category for Silverbolt and Rose Queen, because Rose Queen can make use of Silverbolt. Whereas the Silverbolt focus deck while it may not focus on Rose Queen, can still make use of Rose Queen, and other cards. So like also like Roach and stuff like that. So I kind of just lumped it on one category, but in any case, Silverbolt is definitely on strong, because you still have the same tools from the previous set, and going into this set can also take advantage of new cards like Lilac, Just just a bit less, just a bit less on the fabled archetype. But even without that, this variant of forest can still do really well. So I'll place it on strong. Next, we're gonna go into sword, and we're gonna go into the second meta definer of the deck, which is gonna be hero sword. Now this build doesn't make use of the fabled archetype as much compared to the other decks that do. However, the hero archetype by itself is really strong because Valiant Fencer is an insane card, and the other hero cards that came with the set, like Amuro, Mock Knight, Heroic Entry, they synergize really well with each other. So you can with this deck, you'll basically be flooding your field with a lot of followers and keeping up tempo, setting up for your next turns, and do a lot of damage that way. The only issue with this deck is if you don't manage your resources properly, you could run out of gas, and when this deck runs out of gas, it's kind of hard to recoup from that, but not completely impossible because Heroic Entry is a one card starter, and it's an insane card, especially if you hit any of your hero cards with that, especially Mock Knight. So yeah, so definitely a meta definer deck, in my opinion. Just because it goes really fast. Next, we're gonna go mid-range sword. So this build does not make use of the hero cards from this set. And the way I did for sword is if you're either playing hero or you're not playing hero. So if you're not playing hero, the deck is not gonna be as strong compared to if you are playing hero. That doesn't mean the deck is not good. It's just not. You're just not like top tier. So with that being said, mid-range sword, still a solid deck overall. Because you still make use of Leonidas, but you're just not as fast or as aggro as Hero Sword. Next, we're gonna go into Rune. Just in general, Rune is still not in a very good place this set. Yes, they got some good cards like Wizardess of Oz, Mystic King, and Millie Parfait cards, and a whole bunch of other cards like I don't remember off the top of my head. But overall, Rune is still not in a very good spot. So a lot of Rune is not good. They're gonna be like rogue at best. I'm just gonna spoil that a little bit. But first, Earthright is gonna be rogue, and then I'll just do Spell Chain as well. Put him in rogue. So Earthright is Earthright at the hands of the right pilot can do very well because he still has good options like Runic Guardian, Sun Oracle Pascal, Juno's Laboratory, and then again I did say they did get new options like Wizardess of Oz and the 4-drop in Rune. Yeah, the 4-drop. I forgot the name of it. But it's basically has an effect for both Earthright and Spellchain. So they did get some good cards, but it's just not enough to really make it like stand out, like be that good of a deck. But I mean, again, at the hands of the right pilot, it's gonna be you can see some success with it. Spellchain Rune is kind of in the same place though. When I say Spellchain Rune, I mean like like D shift stuff like that. Yeah, I mean again, so some new cards in the set, but as of right now, it's just not enough to really push it, push it over the edge, so to speak, to where it becomes an amazing deck. Yeah, we won't be seeing Rune up on the top until like what, set 4, set 5, once those good Rune cards come out, like Chimera, Kuon, Curse Crafter, stuff like that. So until then, Rune is just gonna be that forgotten middle child archetype, not archetype, like craft. Next is Chess Rune. So my thing with Chess Rune is, yes, it can be good, and it can, at the right hands of the right pilot, it can do good. However, I don't want to place this on Rogue just because the cost of Mystic King on TCG Player as of today is $8 a pop for the base legendary and $3 for the Evo. You know what else cost about that much in TCG Player? Valiant Fencer. Valiant Fencer base. I'm talking base form. Like, just the cheapest you can get, cheapest possible cost you can pay to get the card. For how much you're paying to invest in making a Chess Rune deck, you're better off spending that money on Hero Sword instead. So with that being said, I'm placing Chess Rune in pay bills instead, because it's just, you're just better off spending your money. You're better off spending your money on either Hero Rune or on bills. Now, not this deck can do some crazy stuff with it, especially if you bring Mystic King out. I just can't justify paying that much for a playset of Mystic King and Evo to have essentially a solid or rogue deck at best. So yeah, it's pay bills instead. Next is gonna be Dragon. We have Discard Dragon and Ramp. I opted not to make a separate category for specifically like Jabberwock or Phoenix Roost, because Phoenix Roost is kind of a meme build at this point, and Jabberwock honestly is, if you're not playing Discard Dragon, you're gonna be playing Jabberwock 9 times out of 10. And if you don't play Jabberwock and you're not playing Discard Dragon, then honestly just kind of just not playing Dragon, up to its full utmost potential. Armed Dragon is another deck I opted not to include on this tier list because there's just not enough support for it on this set. We won't see the rest of the support for Armed Dragon until set 4. But I know some people in EN are cooking, trying to come up with a list for it. I'm just opting not to do that right now. I would rather wait until set 4 until set 4 comes out to really even consider it being a deck. So we are gonna go into. I'm gonna start off with Discard Dragon. This is probably gonna be controversial of a take, but I still think Discard Dragon is gonna be strong because the deck doesn't really change a whole lot going into this set. Matter of fact, this is one of the only decks where it doesn't really make much use of the new cards from this set, if at all. I mean, yes, we got Draconeer, we got that 2 cost on Evo lets you look at the top 3 of your deck and take a Dragon Follower from that bottom deck. The rest, I forgot the name of it. Yes, we have card. Yeah, we did get those cards from this set, but honestly, in Discard Dragon, you're better off just not running any of those cards. Um, and you're better off just trying to make room for Erd to deal with the some of the meta defining decks on this list, so which kind of spoils the last one. But I'll wait until I get there to actually like talk about it. And ramp, because I decided not to make a separate category for Phoenix Roost and Jabberwock Dragon specifically. I kind of the Jabberwock I kind of just lumped into Ramp Dragon, and I'm not even considering Phoenix Roost like a deck at this point. So, with that being said, Ramp Dragon I am gonna place in solid because of the fact that Jabberwock exists. And the card is pretty insane if you can pop it off and if you get lucky. But that's kind of the problem with the build itself, is you kind of have to get to that point for it to be relevant, and if you do, you have to be lucky. So it's high rolly, similar to Discard Dragon, but unlike Discard Dragon, you're not making use of other broken cards like Ogre Recap and Riko Kashimoto, and this Rights and Flute. So yeah, it's just you don't have as much tools. Rather, you don't have as much like really good tools to take advantage of on this build outside of Forte and Jabberwock. I mean, sure if you proc off, with Jabberwock's effect, if you can get off like a Fafnir, Bahamut, Genesis Dragon, or any other big like dragon followers, or neutral in Bahamut's case, unless you get to that point, the deck is just not as good. And if you're not playing Jabberwock in your dragon deck, and you're not playing the discard package, the deck becomes rogue easily, possibly pay bills instead. But otherwise, if you are playing those good cards in dragon, it's a solid deck. Next, we're going to go into Abyss. We have aggro / mid-range Ghost Abyss, and we have Control. For aggro / mid-range, I'm going to place that in solid, because if you're playing Masquerade Ghost in the build, it's good because you can make use of the ghost tokens effect. Of, they leave your field at the end phase. Like they get banished, right? But if you have Masquerade Ghost Evo out on the field, once those ghost tokens leave, they come back as gargantuan ghosts, which have ward, and they're like 3/3, so it's pretty solid. So you can have wards on your side of the field at the end of the turn. The problem with the build is if you don't see Masquerade Ghost, you're essentially playing regular aggro Abyss. So it's still good, just not amazing. Sorry, I kind of had a brain fart. Oh yeah, so yeah, you don't see Masquerade Ghost. You're basically playing regular aggro Abyss, and unfortunately, there's not really any way to tutor Masquerade Ghost so you can see it consistently. So that means you have to hard draw it from your deck. So that's why the deck is like solid at best. I mean, if you can get going early on, sure, you can take games, but overall, it's just not enough to bring it past solid. Next is gonna be Control Abyss, so that's like discard, like hand control stuff like that. Basically, what I think about control decks in this format is I don't think it's gonna do really well, because yes, you can do some crazy stuff with this build, like Crazed Executioner Evo, look at your opponent's hand, make them discard a card, and then keep whittling away at their resources while slowly establishing your board and eventually chip them away and eventually kill them. But the problem with that is it's too slow, and it's a reactionary deck, and being a reactionary in this format is not a good thing, because you want, with the meta definer decks that so far, they push the tempo of the game, that if you can't keep up, you pretty much lose the game. So yeah, that's why I'm placing Control Abyss in Rogue. It's you can still do some cool stuff with it, but you really have to know what you're doing to see success with it. Next, we're gonna go into Haven, which has quite a lot of builds still that it can still play. Some builds are obviously better than the others, so I'm just gonna get that out of the way and put Egg Haven at the very top of Meta Definer. So I'm not saying Egg Haven is the best deck in the format, but I am saying Egg Haven determines the cards that are gonna be played in this meta, because this deck alone forces a lot of decks to have to play Erd to deal with this matchup, because if they don't, they essentially have no answer for this deck's plays. So what I mean by that is, so the setup for this deck is, you essentially want to get Tin Soldier in your EX area and just put stacks on it. And the way you get stacks on it is by using cards like Alice, Evo, Actress Feria, Pinion Prince, if you're pulling it from the cemetery to put in your EX area, stuff like that. But basically, you want to do that, so that way you build up enough stacks on it to bring it out. And if you bring it up from your EX area, it gains an additional stack on top of however many stacks you put on it while it was sitting in the EX area. And not once per turn, it can remove Fable counters from itself to do 2 damage from, to do 2 damage to either an opponent follower or their leader. So if you can build up a lot of stacks on it, and if your opponent just lets you do it, you can potentially OTK them with just one Tin Soldier from the EX area. So now, and that's exactly why Erd is going to see a lot of play, because Erd lets you banish a card from your opponent's EX area. So that Tin Soldier sitting in the EX area building up counters, that looks good. Would be a shame if I just Erd Evo. So yeah. This deck is exactly why this is going to be at the very top of Meta Definer. It literally forces decks to have to play Erd, or else they have no answer. And then on top of that, Egg Haven still has the other half of the deck, which is Humpty Dumpty and Explosion, which if the deck high rolls, it just goes off. No pun intended, but it literally does pop off, because you can go Humpty Dumpty Evo, do 5 damage to the board and 3 damage to your opponent's leader. And yes, you discard your hand, so it is kind of a high risk, high reward card, but if you play your resources properly, it doesn't matter. You're gonna kill your opponent in like 5 or 6 turns. So yeah, that's why this deck is at the very top of Meta Definer. I'm not saying it's the best deck in the format, but it's definitely the one to really watch out for. Next is going to be the other deck introduced in this set, which is Aggro Storm Haven. Aggro Storm Haven it's interesting because of its gimmick, where you give your followers either storm or ward to eventually have both. Like, while it's cool, it's a bit too gimmicky in my opinion. But if you do get going with it, it can give the decks up here a run for its money. I just don't think it's a top tier strategy. So for now, I'm gonna place it in solid. There's potential in there's potential in the gimmick. I just don't think it's really worth investing into the gimmick. However, I will say the art on Diamond Master is pretty good. Next is gonna be Aegis Control. Same thing with Abyss Control. I'm gonna place it in Rogue because it faces the same problems Control Abyss have, but slower. Because you have to spend you have to spend pretty much the beginning of your turn until you get to 8 play points setting up for Heavenly Aegis or getting to the point where you can play Heavenly Aegis. And that's bare minimum, because turn 6 you have to if you do play in Statued Seraph, you have to defend yourself for the next 4 turns to really abuse the effect of Instatured Seraph, to where you can essentially play Heavenly Aegis and Guardian Sun from your EX area for free. And with Erd going to see more play on this set, even if you do get to that point, your opponent can just snipe your Heavenly Aegis and or Guardian Sun from your EX area and just get rid of it. So you spent all of that setting up Heavenly Aegis to drop down on your next turn, only for it to get sniped if you do go that route. And even if you do play it from your hand, you still have to pay 8 play points just to play Heavenly Aegis, and either another 2 play points or discard 3 cards from your hand to evo it, and then you still have to play Guardian Sun on top of that. So if even if it's in the EX area, you still have to spend an extra play point or 2 to crack it. So you have your full Aegis combo. I just think it's not worth it. I almost considered putting it on pay bills instead, but I opted not to do that, because if you do get to Heavenly Aegis and you get the full combo off, Heavenly Aegis is a damn near unkillable card. So yeah. Last for Haven is gonna be the Kaguya Haven, and that's just gonna go straight to pay bills instead. Like, I almost considered not putting this variant on here, but I decided to still put it on here because it is a completely separate build. Okay, not completely separate, but it's a slightly different take on Haven. Yes, you still play the Heavenly Aegis as part of your win condition, but you're leaning more towards other amulets to have available for Kaguya to make use of. And again, with how fast the other decks are in the meta, I just don't think it's worth running Kaguya Haven going into this set. If you are gonna play Haven, excuse me. Excuse me again. Yeah. So I think you're better off just paying bills instead of trying to play Kaguya Haven, unless you're just playing for fun and you just want just kind of mess around with friends, which in which case, all more power to you. But as far as the meta goes, yeah, just pay bills instead. And last but certainly not least is Uma Musume. So Uma Musume is in an interesting place despite the fact that we don't really get any new cards at this point, because what we got in the Uma Musume set, that's pretty much it. With that being said, it's only been a month since Uma Musume came out, so while, for the most part, the build is not gonna change a whole lot. I still think it's a strong deck. It's kind of on the same boat as Discard Dragon, that it's no longer a meta defining deck, but I still think it's gonna be strong going into this next set. So for the time being, I am gonna place Uma Musume in a strong, because you know because knowing players in EN, somebody's gonna come up with something crazy with this deck, and even if they don't, the deck is the plays that you do in this deck, like Daiwa Vodka, is still really strong. So so for go at least for this set, I still think Uma is gonna be a strong contender, and we'll definitely still be seeing it played out. So yeah, that's pretty much the tier list. Let me know in the comments section down below whether you agree with the tier list or if you disagree, and why, and also what how you would place each decks on the tier list. I will include the tier list in the description so you guys can make your own tier list as well. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.